Hey, everybody. Neelay Patel here from SilverSilk and More, and I've got the wonderful, the gorgeous Miss Cassandra Spicer from Beads to Live By. Sorry. just Beads to Live By. It just needs to be beads.
Hi, guys. Hi, Neelay. How are you?
I'm doing great on this Wednesday afternoon / evening or even morning. I guess it won't be morning unless you're in Hawaii. But yeah, I'm doing great so far. It's been a good day. Been a good Wednesday, and I think this is sort of the exciting part of my hump day of the week.
Aw, well,
Just a little extra to get over into Thursday and Friday.
Definitely a highlight for me too, being able to, it's the start of my week at the store of in-person customers and, you know, some mismatch of like the middle of my week when it comes to all the work I do outside of those hours and from home. So it's a good way to break it up.
I hear you. So you were celebrating your anniversary just recently.
Yes, my husband and I yesterday celebrated 14 years of wedded bliss.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I was not like a child bride or anything. Look at your face.
You might have been. You don't even look past 20 some days. I'm just like so confused on people's ages anyway.
How does that happen?
Yeah, you still look like a baby.
Aw, thanks. No, I'll be 39 this year, so I wasn't old when I got married, but I was not like crazy young. I didn't feel like anyways, but no, we actually
really like people, I don't know. Is it hard for you to tell ages too? I feel like people probably just take better care of themselves lately.
Yeah, I'm terrible at guessing age, and I attempt not to do it at all costs.
It could be a pit that you fall into, right?
Exactly. No, we were sitting there though talking about our previous anniversaries and wondering how we had. Oh, my face camera froze up. Wondering how, like, what we had done to celebrate previous years, and we quickly realized that we're definitely old enough to not always remember our celebrations from year to year because it's been that long. So that was a sad realization that that's how old we are.
Well, I think 14 is fantastic, and here's to many more. I've only got my tea with me because I'm doing tea this afternoon.
Yes, I shared with you earlier that tea is the drink of choice tonight as well.
For sure. I think I'm drinking a passion fruit one. What about you?
I was just going to say, for people who like these sorts of things, this is a ginger turmeric from Trader Joe's. And so like it's a very distinct, if you're not a real like gung-ho tea drinker, it might not be for you. But if you like really earthy flavors, it's a really interesting, you know, and turmeric's supposed to be like a anti-inflammatory, and ginger's really good for your digestive system. So I love the idea that like maybe I'm doing something mildly healthy for my body while it's chilly in Michigan too. Like our weather is turning, so definitely nice to have something warm, cozy to drink.
I also just like that spice flavor too, kind of the icing on the cake with all those health benefits as well.
Yeah, it's got like a little thing to it, but I know there's some people who are like totally anti-ginger. The turmeric probably comes across strong if you are already not a fan of something like ginger. So
true, that's true.
Put that like label.
Too spicy for some folks.
Yeah. Put that warning out there for anyone who would like dare to go buy it and then go, oh, Cassandra has horrible taste. I don't know why she would suggest I drink it.
Well, I don't think you have horrible taste, and I would say this is a good segue into the project actually, because
talking about
I'm in love with your taste and flavor for seed beads. In fact,
thank you.
Look at that.
And you know, as I like tagged all the people in this post where I was realizing how many different products that we love that I utilized in this like not large or involved bracelet, it was just cracking me up because, you know, I've got little like accents from TierraCast and our friends over at Flaflex with the wire, and of course your fabulous pipe chain that is just creating this perfect, it reminds me of like the mixed media type jewelry where people use like chunky leather with other things involved, but the pipe chain's a little bit more user friendly for my purposes. So
I definitely love the mixed media. Like you've been able to you've managed to put so much into this design, and yet there's like just such a harmonious balance and like focus on the color, and then the rest of it just kind of is that backdrop, and but it doesn't get uninteresting on the rest of the design. It continues the fantastic I don't know, textures and color right to the end without being too over the top. So I'm really just nuts about this design. And the seed beads just speak so much already. And I feel like they've been sort of making a comeback as we've sort of progressed through the years. They sort of fell off for me, but now I found sort of a newfound love with it. And the fact that you are making these mixes just excites me so much.
Aw, well, thank you. I'm gonna have to send you our November shipment when I send out my other teaser boxes to the influencers and other people that we work with, because I am long overdue to get some of them to you, and I think you'd really enjoy that color palette, and especially going into the holidays. It's festive, we'll just say that.
Totally. I would be so into it and excited to work with it, with many of my different chains, in fact.
So I did choose some other colors to work with tonight. This is a set from our September selection. So for those who are not familiar with our curated collections, we do a monthly subscription, and the colors and buttons, we have two different options: seed beads in a size 11, and then buttons, check glass vintage buttons. And the seed beads come 8 colors to a box each month. And once we've shipped those or the subscription renewals have happened, then we share a listing for people that can check what their colors are, reorder those colors, and just generally enjoy the beauty that is like the various collections together. So these are 5 of the 8 colors that we used from September. So given that information, the September and October, which is what these colors are from, are both available for reorder on the website under the Curated Collections tab. But that will be different than registering for the subscription, which your next delivery would be at the end of November for the subscription options.
Gotcha. I'm nuts about these colors. Even for September, though, I could see these working kind of anytime that you really want to wear them.
Yeah, I felt like I was kind of feeling like the cool down, even though, you know, September can still have its warm pops for us, but I didn't want like September, October, November to all be like oranges and, you know, autumn leaf colors. So these are the other 3 colors from that month. And oh, thanks, Melissa. I love these colors. I omitted some of the purples from this combination because I am going to use some of this awesome bright pipe chain with these blues and more neutral colors in the September color scheme. So I'm really excited about that combination. But I think we posted this apply list in the event as well as the SilverSilkies group. And do you want me to just go over what specific items I used in it before we get started, or?
Yeah, that would be good. And then just any basic tools that you might have used as well.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I will pull those things out. Some things that the SilverSilkies might not work with on a regular basis, other than my like ridiculous notes all over my packaging. We really enjoy working with WildFire thread for one type of the thread that we use at the store. So this is a 10-pound test, and it's bound and then coated. So there's like a nice set of color options. And even though this green looks a little bit intense on camera, it is one of the awesome neutrals that they offer. They also have like a gray a beige is a newer one, which was unfortunately out of stock when I just placed my reorder. But the gray and the green we've been using for years as like nice neutrals with our stitching. And I love the 10 pound because you've got, you know, just like this little set of, you know, strands. And I feel a lot better about putting like single strands of beads floating between other things if I'm using something a little bit, you know, more heavy duty like that WildFire. So we've also got these great little flower nuggets from our friends at TierraCast, and you could use any kind of toggle. These happen to be from either their Flora or Hardin collection that they did maybe a few years ago now. Gosh, it's been a minute, but these little rectangular ones just have like such great texture and interest to them. But those flower nuggets are important because I believe they have at least a 1.5 millimeter hole. It might even be like a 2 millimeter. Mm-hmm. And that part is really crucial for stitching your seed beads in and out of that. You know, it acts almost the way a end cap does, but the beauty of it is that your seed beads don't sink into the hole, so they stay on the outside of that hole and allow you to create this like really clean attachment to this wire, which is an 18 gauge craft wire. And the hole size does allow you to pass back and forth through that nugget enough times to create this little section of like, you know, strands that you're wanting to do with the seed beads. So that's the purpose behind that. I like to give people a reason why, so they understand that like any old spacer bead might not be ideal. And it's got this cute little flower detail on it that we love. Yeah. And then I also would caution people against, you know, attaching their clasp right to their wire. The wire wrapped loop, I prefer to add a jump ring, both because you can control the size after the fact, but also because when you're working your toggle, it's just a little bit easier, especially on your bar end, if you've got a little bit more movement there and you're not putting as much wear and tear on other parts of your bracelet. So let's see, 18 gauge wire, and then gosh, I think that's it. Looks like everything that's present there. I use like a size 11 or size 12 beading needle for those that are not familiar with the WildFire thread. It'll go through both of those, although the 12 is a little bit harder to thread, especially if you don't have a lot of prior experience. And I'm just going to show you guys my little trick right now, since I've got this thread kind of hanging out here, for how we go about that. So I like to flatten the end of the thread really nice, and I've got about 1.5 yards or so here. You're probably gonna have extra, but you know, it's better to have a little bit more than you need than not enough. And that thread is gonna go right, and you can use your teeth, you can use a pair of pliers, like flat nose pliers, to flatten that. My nails are just long enough that I can do most of what I need to that way, but whatever you've got available to you. And then it's probably not going to stay focused on my fingers. We're going to try. You just lower your needle over the end of that thread, and having it pressed between your fingers like that allows it to go through the eye just enough that then you can go ahead and pull the rest through. You don't want to double it over. You only want to like double over about a foot worth. And then, so you've got like 2 feet doubled, and you've got a bunch that's just a single towards the, what we call tail end, which is the furthest end from your
Beading also carries a, for those of us that don't love stringing, they have a large eye needle that I really, really love. I need to get more of those, in fact, and they're just so user friendly.
Yeah, I feel like their particular large eye needle will fit through a lot of the seed beads. That's the one thing that you have to be careful with on the size 11s, is that their holes are small enough that sometimes they don't fit over those kinds of things. But yes, I do feel like I've got a customer who uses their big eye needle pretty often for stitching. So that's a great suggestion. And one of our favorite, I don't know if I have them in stock right now because I think it was out of stock with my vendor the last time I ordered, but this is what I use to cut my threads, like WildFire or Fireline. And one side of these thread cutters, I don't know if you're really able to see it on camera, but one side's serrated and one side is smooth. And it grabs a hold of your thread and then slices it really nicely.
Oh, nice.
So that's what I use for the thread. And then we've got just our, regular flush cutters for cutting the wire. And I have several brands of the chain nose and round nose pliers that I enjoy, but I do feel like you don't have to spend a ton of money. These are like a kind of higher end or at least middle of the road brand. And I have some fairly inexpensive ones that we carry at the store now that are like less than $10 a pair and work really well. So it just depends on your comfort level, how much wire working you're doing, I think, too, as to whether you need a more expensive brand or not. But just my personal opinion. So the construction of this bracelet, my suggestion, due to very personal experience, is this bracelet ended up a little small, and I'll give you guys lots of tips on how to avoid that. But one way to make sure you're sizing it appropriately for your wrist is these sections with the pipe chain are about 2 inches each, and the pipe chain itself, I should say, and then you add a little bit of length when you're adding your wire wraps. But I would, and I'll show you this in the kind of the order of how I do the video tutorial, but we're gonna make these sections with the pipe chain first, attach the clasp, and then that way when you clasp it shut, about how much room you have still to go with your beads, with the seed beads. So that's my biggest thing that I would suggest people do in order to avoid sizing issues, because of course when we're designing, Nile, you know this from previous situations, you don't always do things in the order that you would then, suggest somebody else do it, because you're just figuring out what you're doing as you go.
For sure.
So I definitely sized this one a little small, and I think probably after the video I'll redo the seed bead part, because I really love those colors a lot. But who knows, maybe I'll be super obsessed with the new colors as well. And not
if you ended up adding some spacers at the end, like if that might help compensate.
Yeah, you could easily, if that happens to someone while they're working on their own, a few more jump rings on the clasp end would make this comfortable for me as well. You can't adjust anywhere through this portion once you complete that without cutting the thread. But I mean, that part goes so fast. I think for me, I really am excited about the idea of, looks like the video froze up again, but I'm really excited about the idea of adding a few more seed beads through that section, since I love the way the colors look so much. So that part should be okay. Like I think I can stomach, cutting it up just a tiny bit. All right, so because I've got my sample right here, I'm just gonna use my original to cut the next section of pipe chain, but I do think that the 2 inches is an easy, like if you like the overall look of the proportions, to just go ahead with the 2-inch measurement on that. And then I don't know, I feel like Nile gave us this advice one time to just like kind of smush the ends with our fingers to get those little frizzies off the wire.
Yeah, there's sometimes always some bits of wire from the knits that haven't quite, or they've been sort of, cut off at the point of where they're starting their knit. So they just need to be flaked off like you did there to, get them out of the way.
Yeah, and luckily, if if you're doing this project, you get a little bit of a built-in sort of end cap with this wire. That was part of the reason I did it this way. So the pipe chain, I don't mind leaving the ends bare, but this gives it, you know, an extra nice finished look as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got about a foot of my 18 gauge wire here, and this is like a silver tone. We really love the Softflex brand craft wire. And when I go to, like, you know, maybe the length of my finger, I want to give myself plenty of room. So if I'm using a foot, I'm probably working more closer to like 4 inches down the wire and making my first bend. So that's like that right angle bend to create my loop, because I want plenty of wire on the bend to do my wrapping with, because I want to add that extra texture there. And then you're going to take that shorter piece over and around. I've got it midway up my pliers, but again, that's really going to be dependent on, you know, what kinds of pliers you're working with, what size the barrel is, because these get really narrow at the end. So it's a little different than some of the other styles.
I do love how tapered they are.
What was that?
I do love the narrow taper on those.
Yeah, they're like itty bitty on the end. So it allows you to do some finer work with them, but I don't always need them for that kind of a purpose. Sure. So this 18 gauge wire really fills up the pipe chain nicely. And obviously this wire is not like work hardened through this portion that's inside of the pipe chain. So there is some like bending and shaping you can do with the wire inside of it, but you don't want to go overboard with it, because it's going to, there's the potential for the wire to get brittle and break. But from normal wear and tear while you're just wearing your bracelet, you should not have to worry about that. So this piece that's sticking off of the end from this loop, we're going to leave that there. And we've got we'll be bringing the pipe chain all the way up to the loop. And then we're going to do a mirror image of the loop going the same direction. And I have a hard time avoiding leaving too much of that space, but I think I'm going to switch out and use my flat nose pliers, because I really don't want much space there on the end because of how we're going to do this wrap. So there, that was more pleasing to me, getting that right up against the end there. And then position your pliers the same space that you used roughly for the last loop. And when I say like a mirror image, or so that they're facing the same direction, like when you look at the pipe chain, I want to be able to see my loops without having to turn the wire to like see the face of the loop, and have them both go in.
What was the brand of cutters that you recommended for WildFire, and is that something that you sell at Beads to Live by?
Yes. So these, I believe, are a Xeron brand, and I only know them as thread cutters, but the reason we love them so much is that they have a serrated and a smooth edge, one on each side of the end of the cutter. So if we are out of stock on them right now, it's only because our vendor was when we ordered last time, and that's something that we always restock when it's available. So if somebody's got questions about where they can nab those, they can feel free to message me, or if they don't see it on the website. So now that we've got those loops all ready to go, and if your loop is not perfectly round, you can play with it, but you don't get down on yourself. And we're going to take that leftover piece of wire that's still dangling, and I do a couple of wraps down away from the loop and over the pipe chain, just enough to catch the very end of it. And you're gonna get some like overlap here. And then I like to get my wrap to go up around the very base of the the loop so that you don't really see where the loop stops and the pipe chain starts. At least that's how I feel it comes across. And then you just want to make sure that wherever you leave off in that last wrap, you want that to be tucked in really nice. And the flush cutters for the wire, the interior, what I think of as the concave side, you want that to be facing away from your project, and then the flat side to be facing towards your project, because that's like where your wire is going to be left behind. You want that to be a nice flush flat. Ta-da!
Beautiful. That's so awesome. It looks like it's super easy to do too.
It really is. There's nothing about this that's not just like basically a regular old, like what we traditionally call a gallery wrap, but it's a little more freeform or organic than I learned how to do that. And I'm going to rush through, not rush, but the rest of my wraps that I make, I'm not going to like detail every step, just so that we can get the whole project done. And I'm trying to cover, just felt like I had some weird space there. So as you guys saw, like I pulled back and forth on that wire a couple of times, and it's still not giving us any trouble with like breakage or anything. It's nice and soft for working with. Aw, Vanessa, you know, I am in no way a professional wire wrapper or wire artist. That's not my forte. So it, A, makes me feel really good that you think that about my loops, and B, also should be a signal to anyone who doesn't work with wire very often to know that a little bit of practice goes a long way, and this is not a difficult project. So, and then you can literally take your wrist and just give yourself on the edge of your wrist, you can just give a little bend, and that gives a really nice natural curve to that little bar.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. There's so
Woohoo!
many things you can do with those little links too.
You know, Neela, it's funny that you say that, because I thought if I made them a little bit shorter so that there wasn't so much potential for them to bend, those would make a great, like you could go in between them with longer strands of the seed beads and do like a necklace, maybe like with more of the links. I don't know. I've got ideas.
Watch out. That's a sign of danger there.
Yeah. So I've got my second like 1 foot section, and you know, I mean, there's a bit of waste there, but I'd rather tell people too much wire than not enough on the
There's
portion.
always a use for those scraps too.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could save those for, I feel like our friends Sarah and Kristen over at Softflex do really fun things with the wire, and they probably have all sorts of things you could use that size piece for. And another important note, remember, once you make part of your loop on the first side of that newly cut wire, string your pipe chain on and make the other partial loop before you continue to do your wrapping, because that'll give you that super nice finished look that you're going for with the wraps overlapping just right. And then I almost forgot that I wanted to switch out.
Like it would also just keep it in place, like almost a bead stopper, if you will, for the pipe chain, so that way it doesn't move or shift around as you're trying to climb the wraps over the pipe chain part.
Yep, that's exactly what you're doing with that. So good explanation. And if people were like wanting to make a couple of bracelets, it'd be excellent practice for them to assembly line these pieces and practice their wraps, you know.
Oh, that's a good idea.
In a row several times before they, bouncing you guys around, before they move on to the seed bead part.
I'm a fan of messy, sort of unplanned loops, I guess. To me, there's just something a little bit more artistic. And I think given that you're using TierraCast components that kind of look garden-esque in a way, like, or whimsical maybe might be a better term.
Yeah, I
The loops,
totally agree. I think there's something really fitting about, because those little flower nuggets have quite a bit of irregularity, or what looks like irregularity to them because of the way that they faceted them.
mhm,
And I really feel like it fits well with that that messy wrap.
yeah,
Part of me also wanted to do those like do one section ahead of time so that, you know, I could just have video magic of, oh look, and now we're halfway done. But I think it's better for you guys to be able to watch the process of those wraps a couple times, because it is something that just takes a little bit of time to learn how to get through it smoothly, so to speak.
for sure. I was gonna say something and now I totally forgot what it was. Oh, it's the fact that we can spend a little more time together.
There you go. That was my real reason for
Yeah,
stalling on
exactly.
that.
Try and keep each other on film for a little longer.
Yes, a little more time together.
Our YouTube buddy loves organic or rustic wraps, which is a good term
Yeah,
for it.
I am like conditioned into calling them messy wraps because they feel imperfect, but rustic and organic are both excellent ways to describe them.
I agree. Well, and I think that kind of is a good complement to the season too, with the leaves, sort of that rustic color palette, organic nature happening and transitioning. There's a lot of good terms that I think
Yeah.
inspire your next design.
So with the jump rings, I always like to use a second pair of pliers. I happen to have some like just crimpers here. You can use a second pair of chain nose pliers if you have them, but a lot of people don't, you know, choose to have a second pair of the exact same plier around. So this is actually a trick that I learned from Softflex, that the crimper pliers work really well to like just give you that extra piece to hold on to.
Totally. That's a great tip.
And then we're just gonna give these guys, always remember with your jump rings, you want to twist, not pull, you know, like you don't want to pull them away from the ends away from each other. You want to twist the ends apart the other direction.
Oh, I love that so much already. I
Yeah.
can't believe how quickly it's coming together.
I know, right? And now it's just like throw some seed beads on that puppy and it's done. So Neely, what are you working on right now? Is there anything exciting coming up that people should be prepared for in SilverSilk land?
Well, I believe my upcoming workshop kits are sold out. I put them up over a weekend and they were already gone, but that happens actually at the end of December. So the kit's already being shipped out. There's, I think, 2 left of one of the 2. But I anticipate those will sell out very quickly. Look at that.
Ta-da! That's a great problem to have. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks. I didn't make a huge run of them. I think I only did 50 units of each, or just under. But really, it was just a way to kind of gather up the friends and have like one last hurrah before 2023 approaches. And everyone will be welcome to attend the workshop. They will be informed of the materials ahead of time whenever that time does come around. So they can probably join in with some of their own materials. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a really fun, just a really great time to, again, just get together. But in between that time, I'm working on one thing that I'm going to launch in mid-November. And I think that's really about it. So I kind of slowed some stuff down in terms of just pacing the stuff, I guess, just to give myself a little bit of a breather as well. But
Well, I
you
love
know,
how like 50
oils in
colors
between.
of each kit and launching a brand new item is slowing things down for you.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a lot on the back end, but it might seem a little bit more slim up front, but there's a lot of moving parts to a lot of things. But I do love my customers and friends out there that are very patient and are excited when stuff does happen. So that's always fun.
Awesome. Well, that all sounds great. You gave me just enough time to get myself ready for my next section, so thank you.
That's for sure.
So we've got that whole set of like the toggle connected, and we've got our wire wraps done, and everything is on except for our seed beads. So this end of my thread is the end that's furthest away from my needle end, which is what we like to call the tail end. And I'm just going to string that through this loop and maybe leave like 4 to 6 inches of tail that is past where we're going to do a double overhand knot. So like just regular, like the way you would tie a knot on your shoes, but this little piece will be something that we'll use to just secure that end when we finish off the rest of the stitching. So like just bring that tail around through this loop and pull that down tight a second time, and you've got just a little knot at the end of the thread, or at the it's wrapped around your wrap there, the wire wrap. Too many wraps, too many loops. And then we're going to grab our coordinating spacer nugget, and you can bring that down, and we've got 2 of those total. You'll start with one and end with the other. So like you can just let that float right at the loop. And then I do want to comment on, you could do a lot of different things with the patterning of how you string your seed beads. If it's easier for you just to like mix them up, and I actually am going to probably throw some of this check glass in here because it looks so good with these. But those are also coordinated items from our September collection that are purposely set to coordinate with the seed beads. So that's why they look so good together. But this patterning is just, I would use like 3 of something and then 1 that really contrasted, and then another couple of another color. I liked the stripiness of this. It feels like a lot of the traditional seed bead weaving you see in the cultures that we get so many of our stitches from, like Native American and African tribes. So definitely kind of a homage to where we find so many of our fabulous roots in the seed bead world. So with my 5 colors here, I'm going to be pulling a lot of my neutrals and then just using those blues and greens as an accent to keep things interesting. And a lot of these colors are matte that I happen to choose. So that's another reason it'll be good to mix it up with some of my check glass. Of course, I'm working on this tiny little nonsense bead board here. So it's, but if you guys notice, like I purposely kind of pile up my seed beads because it's easier if you can kind of scoop them up onto your needle like that instead of having to pick a single bead at a time. So there's just an example of like how your colors can work. And right now I'm not worrying about the measurement because I'll, size this in a minute, but.
And once you get one size down, it's basically just matching the other strands up to that one. But if it were me, I would just keep adding on beads because it's fun to do.
Yeah. So this first strand, once you do size it, it's really crucial because you want to avoid making any strand after this any smaller than your original strand, because what happens is any smaller strand will size down your bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely an important part of the process here. And I am definitely going to cheat and still use my original as like a kind of a go by.
I'm not sure which of those colors is like really my favorite for the evening here. I'm really in love with that matte blue.
Yeah, it's got this one's got a little more teal to it. This is a little bit more of a powder blue, but they both really have some interesting qualities. And I mean, they're kind of funky with the purple, but I'm here for it.
I like the combo. I think it's cool. Okay, so that's the other spacer, it looks like.
Yes, so we're gonna give this puppy a whirl here. So I think for the sake of making my life easy, I'm gonna leave everything clasped and whatnot, and then I'm gonna take, so hard because my camera is so low on the table, but I'm gonna take this all around and just make sure when you do something like this that there's no slack in your thread. So all the beads are like taut on that thread. But I think that feels like a great size based on what I can determine from my spacing over here. So once you get all of your beads that you want to use on that strand and you get your spacer bead on the open end, you're going to go to the open end of the like wire wrapped loop that doesn't have anything on it right now, and you're going to go through the loop. And then you're going to go just back through that nugget the opposite direction. So you've got this loop of thread and then you're coming through the nugget back out to create your next strand. And if you just pull on your loose thread, it'll keep everything taut. And while we string these next sets of beads, we'll just give that a tug when we get to this end again so that everything is, we just want to make sure there's no slack in the thread. At the end of the day, that's like your main goal. Beyond that, there's really no like crazy tricks to the process. I might even be tempted to throw some mixed strands into this design where I've got like all the seed beads just like willy-nilly, because I think that might make it more interesting too. I also, this is something that probably gets a little too nitpicky for some people, so do not pay any attention to me if that's the case, but I like to measure up my strands. So like the quantity of this color that I'm putting on next to this one is different. So like your sections won't all look the same, like with blocks of color all lined up next to each other, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to have that balance with all the different colors that you're working with.
Well, and because it's such a simplistic design, I think that's stuff that really, even if somebody doesn't consciously notice that they're aware of it, it's something that probably is playing into why they like the piece. So I like to point those kinds of things out because, you know, you will have a more pleasing design at the end of the day if you are paying attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
How's everybody else out there doing tonight? I feel like Facebook world's a little quiet. Is there some chatter on your end?
Vicky says, tie my shoe. I've had Velcro for years.
Oh no.
There was a mention of shoe tying earlier.
Oh, well, back when you did still tie your shoe, Vicky. Oh, that's funny.
Ooh, she also said I've done a very similar wrap on the capture chain when I ran out of SilverSilk ends. So that's a fun tip for those messy loops as well. Would be fun to do one at the end of capture chain.
Definitely.
Could we see maybe you in the needle process with
Yeah, sorry. The way
putting the
that
beads on the needle maybe might
yeah,
be.
the way the camera's set up. Let me hold my whole bead board up as I think this might help a little bit too. So let's see, what do I want to put on here? I think I'll stick to seed beads for this strand. So when I'm talking about like bringing your needle, like I try not to hit the surface of my bead board, and I'm just like gently scooping with the end of that needle. That's how I kind of pull some of those on without giving myself a complete and utter headache. So then if you look at your like strands of how they're interacting with one another and you're happy with the way things are going, then you just have to confirm beyond a shadow of a doubt that you don't make this strand any smaller than your first one. So we've got, that feels pretty darn even keeled to me, but because I'm a little like uncertain, I've got that bead on there, the check glass, I'm gonna just throw a couple extra seed beads on the end for good measure, because a little extra length is not the problem. It's definitely that you don't want to shorten it at all. So I'm going to take my my needle, and this is the end we started at. We're going to go back through that flower nugget spacer, and I've got little knots in my thread that keep trying to pop up. And then I'm going to take this newest strand that we created, and I'm going to pull on the far end of everything before I give one final pull on the working end. That's going to just ensure that there's no thread showing between those beads. And then from here, you're going to take your needle and go through the loop of the wire wrap, and just make sure you maintain tension as much as possible, and then go back down through the nugget. And this should give you a little extra security. And also make sure when you're exiting the nugget that you're going between the seed beads and not going through any of them. Oops, I'm all wrapped around my bead board here.
That happens to me sometimes. I just have random tools and stuff that try and work themselves into the project.
Oh my gosh, it's just like, you know, again, working on camera is so different than when you're just like doing your normal thing. So I feel like that's half the battle, is trying to keep yourself in frame, but
strategic tutorial creation on camera.
yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna dig into this. I've got this mixed pile that has some of those other colors that I said I wasn't gonna use in it. And I'm really kind of feeling the idea of maybe throwing a few of those in there. We'll see if it's a big old nightmare. I don't know. Neela, you're great with color. Let me get more of this purple on here and then get your opinion on how you feel like it goes.
Oh, I love it. I think it also helps tie in even more the pipe chain, because it is
Yeah,
such a
I was worried since they weren't the same shades of purple that it would be a problem, but I agree with you. I think that's how I feel about it now that we're in the middle of it.
For sure. So Annette is asking, so you're just using one length of fire line and then securing as you reach each turnaround?
So that is correct. It is WildFire, just to clarify. But a 10-pound beading thread of your, preference is probably going to work, very similarly. I like to ensure it's a thicker, pound weight, so that people are not, dealing with breakage or anything unnecessarily.
Jody says, I love the tips you are sharing, and I'm writing them down for future reference.
Oh, that makes me feel so special, Jody. Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, I love that. It
Gonna
picks
pull
up
that
so many
together.
other like variations that you have in your working palette already too.
Yeah. All right. And I do pull my seed beads down. I like to see everything, especially again with something that's more simplistic like this. Just get it all in there together so that we can, you know, see what we're dealing with. That really helps me to make decisions about like what colors I want to put on. And after that first strand, I'm going to remind you guys every time we turn around to not tighten your length at all. So one of my faux pas with my first piece. So when I hold up like the strands that I started with and then the one that I'm adding now, I just, if I bring it with no slack in my beads and it's end to end and it doesn't look like it's pulling at all, then I know that that's going to work. And I would also caution people, I think somebody might be tempted to count their beads and just use that as a method of measuring the length. The beads are not the same brand. They're not all the same size. So a couple of seed beads could make a difference. And I just like to, you know, make sure people are prepared for those kinds of things. So we're going through the nugget and, you know, you can go through that wire wrapped loop at the same time if that's pleasing to you. And then that way, all you have to do when you come back is go through just the nugget by itself, avoiding going back through the loop and avoiding going through your seed beads. Oh yeah, this is gonna be funky and fun. I like it.
So much. I love that color scheme.
I really think I'm gonna go ahead and pull from this mixed pile again for at least one more strand. So just to give everybody an idea of the thickness, I only did 5 strands on this sample, and especially with adding the check glass in, I think that's gonna give you the perfect amount of thickness for your piece. Of course, I grabbed that sample and Nile, it was doing that thing where it was trying to become part of this piece.
Pam is commenting that I like the look when the strands are not exactly the same length.
Oh, yes. And that is my auntie. Hi, Pam. I was like, Pam who? Oh, Pam Strufert. Yeah, so I think that you get a little more texture when you add some bulk by having them kind of bow out a little bit.
Well, and I think because it also has to curve around your wrist, having some extra beads on a few others will help to sort of, whenever it bunches together, it kind of lays on top of each other rather than fighting against each other to like wrap around.
Yes, excellent point. I agree with you 100%. But it's a nice thing to just determine the shortest strand with your first piece so that you don't have to, you know, think about that moving forward other than you want all of your other strands to be longer. I think that just makes life a little bit easier. We're close here.
Oh, Annette also has a lovely comment. I love that you combine pink with teal. I would have never have that to combine with those, but love them. I'm the first bracelet.
Yes, the pink comes across in real life in a little bit more of a peachy color, so that might be why it works a little bit better with that intense teal, because the oranges, you know, are in there as well. But thank you. I really enjoyed those colors a lot.
I do too. I think there's always something different with different folks mixing different colors together too. So I feel like you've done half the work for us just by helping us with colors. And then the rest is like we just have to put the bracelet or whatever we want together.
No, I've shared that about this collection before, is that it's really I need another. I've got these little beads sitting here with the head pins attached already, and I don't need a head pin for this project. Yes, the combinations in the curated collection is just like something that after almost 20 years in this industry, I know how hard it is sometimes for people to pick out their own colors. That's like the number one complaint I get from customers about, like trying to put together a project or a design, is that they are stressed about color choices. So, that was years and years of hearing that in person from people. I thought, well, gosh, I can do something about that and make it, especially when you're talking about people who need to shop online for beads because they can't necessarily go purchase them in person. It's even harder to see the combinations of what you're picking out. You can't hold them up to each other, right? So
For sure.
it makes me feel good to be able to help people with that, because the creative process can be stressful, even though it's meant to be, pleasant and relaxing. Take that stress away as much as we can.
Absolutely. I even sometimes just don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, I have so much in my hoarding of my own, and today I found myself just flabbergasted of like, I've got all these things, but I don't know what the heck to do with any of them. So I think it's going to be one of those things where it's a work in progress, and I'm going to have to reapproach my table many times before I can finally configure a few different things that I like. But I'm very picky about the stuff that I make too.
Yeah,
More than the
yeah.
average person I think should be.
No, I totally know what you're saying. And it's funny, when I sat down to work on this project, normally when I make video schedules with you, it's like 4 to 8 months out minimally. And I tend to have like an idea in mind. And the last time we did a project together, it was not like a stitching project. And I think you or somebody else commented on hoping that we did another stitching project soon. And so that was like the catalyst for why I, was working to like make sure I used a needle and thread.
For sure.
That's my last strand, guys. Ah,
No.
so much
Gosh, I'm in love
fun.
with that so much.
So here's all the tricks and tips to ending your thread. I feel like, again, because of the simplicity of like, this is basically stringing and you're just turning around on the ends, I'm going to turn around on this end. I'm going to work all the way through one of my strands of seed beads to come back to this end and tie my needle and tail end threads to each other. And I don't feel like I just went through the... Oh, I did go through the loop. It just twisted. I was like, I thought I went through the loop, and then it kind of...
So in order for that to happen, to meet up with the other strand, you have to remember to have an odd number of strands, I think, if that math works out correctly.
Yes, that is a great point. If you had an even number, then you would just be at the same end already, and that would be okay too, probably. But I think there's something about the tension of like, we ended a thread, at this side, but are going to bring this all the way back to the other end, that kind of makes it a little more secure in my mind. So nothing fancy about going back through a strand. Just make sure you stay inside of, and I'm going to undo my clasp for this part. I think it's a lot easier now that you're done with that sizing aspect, to open up your bracelet so that you can really pull the strand out. So, I go through as many beads as I can get my needle through at once when I'm going back through a strand. I think that's just quicker, but oof, I've got some knotting happening here.
I think we had someone asking about a bead spinner earlier, and you could spin your beads onto another piece of thread ahead of time, and then probably just do what you're doing by stringing them on
like
onto,
working through them with your
yeah.
needle onto the new thread. Yeah, I would say because this is such a short section, it might be more trouble than it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Heather
Unless you were
Powers,
doing a mass production.
exactly. Heather Powers was doing a project this afternoon actually with our October colors, and one of the projects she used a bead spinner with some wire, but she was stringing like
Mm-hmm.
12 inches of beads all at once. And in those circumstances, like 100%, I would say it makes sense to use something to like speed up your process there.
Gotcha. For
You
sure.
guys can see I'm coming all the way up through my strand, out my flower nugget, and just be careful as you pull your thread through that you don't wrap around anything, because that thread that you're working with could like capture, you know, parts of your bracelet and look ugly at the end. And then the other thing to do is I would go through the loop of your wire wrap before you tie these two pieces together. It's just going to give you like a more secure knot. And then we're just taking that tail thread and giving it a good tug after we loop it, and then do one more. I'm not going to get over that Velcro comment anytime soon about the shoes. That's so funny. I mean, I should tie my shoelaces and then just slip my tennis shoes on, or, you know, like I've got boots with
Velcro shoes
slippers.
back in the day. I mean, that was like my entire 90s era.
Velcro shoes.
Velcro shoes. I'd have them today if I could, if they looked cooler.
You wear super fun, like bright neon sorts. I just feel like I have an image of you in the 90s.
That was my jam.
Yay, I love it. So I just brought my needle back down through the nugget after making those knots, and just came through a couple of seed beads. I have a thing about, I like to move away from my knot before I trim my thread, because that to me helps protect my knot, and then it also kind of tucks away the tails of what would be left behind if I trim my thread and it's, you know, kind of sticking out a little bit. If it's inside of those seed beads, it's going to be held in place, right?
Yes, for sure.
So this is my tail end from like when we first started, and I'm just going to get that needle on there, and we'll take it down. You know, you don't have to do anything else with it now, other than go through that nugget. I'm going to try to go through a different strand than I did with my other end of the thread. Looks like I managed to achieve that goal. Really no hard and fast rules about that part. It's just kind of a fussy, like if we're going to nitpick and really like give all the secrets, then oh my gosh, you guys, it's, get this tray out of the way here. It's all done. My ouchie scar from when I burnt myself a couple weeks ago.
I love that so much. I think that turned out phenomenal just because of the colors that you use. There's some really fun things happening, and I love the contrast between that softer palette and the sort of brighter glow of the pipe chain. There's just something really fun about this design that I'm nuts over.
I agree with you, and I appreciate the feedback. I was really excited about because some people are like a little afraid of color. So like an intense like violet in that pipe chain might like scare somebody off from using it. But when you soften it up a little bit with that kind of a neutral combination that still pulls some of those like cool tones from the purples and blues, it really, I mean, there's nothing about it that's scary, right?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be a fun attempt. I'm actually excited to try it myself. In fact, I have this idea for a menswear necklace, or not necklace, bracelet that I'm sort of formulating in my head for a technique that you just used today.
Yay! I can't wait to see it. You always have wonderful designs. I'm Oh, this is good. I can't wait to, I just want to, honestly, I was on your website after I did the first one and I was adding all of the colors of pipe chain to my cart. I was like, I want to make these bracelets in every combination of seed beads that I have available because it's just like addictive.
Well, and it's so easy the way that you've put it together too, and I think that's what makes it so appealing. But also the clasp that you chose, it just brings out, you know, another design element that complements this so perfectly. So
yeah, and
well,
TierraCast has lots of fun toggle options. So like, even though I just kept it the same for these two, like there are endless possibilities with that part.
for sure, for sure. All right, you guys, it's been a fun-filled hour, and Cassandra walked us through head to toe with this look of pipe chain and seed beads, and so beautiful, just absolutely stunning colors. So you'll definitely want to check out her bead subscription for her seed beads. I believe Joan posted the links to both YouTube and Facebook for us. And if you missed it completely, then it's actually in the video description over on the YouTube channel. We've also posted the links to each of our YouTubes in case you're on the Facebook platform. And if you're over on YouTube already, then please give us a subscribe and a big thumbs up for our video. It's been wonderful. And Cassandra, do you have any last things you would like to add on?
No, I am super grateful to everybody in our beading like mutual community for their love and support over the last few months. The subscription thing has been a like big endeavor for me and a lot of growth, and some of that's been painful, just, you know, learning new processes and technology with our app that we're using. So I also appreciate everybody's patience who's subscribed already. But I just ordered my next round of subscription beads and I had to double my order from the first one. So for the next 3 months, we're, you know, gonna potentially do twice as many subscriptions as we did in the first 3 months. So I'm really excited about that, and I really appreciate everybody supporting us with that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And yeah, we've got some really great people that are supporting our livelihood and the arts, as I like to say
For
too.
sure.
So
Yeah.
artisans are important, and they add color to the world, for both figuratively and literally.
Literally.
So, well, thanks for sharing some good vibes with us, Cassandra. We love having you back over on the Silkies world time and time again. And I'm sure we'll be doing some more projects in 2023 together. We'll definitely do some projects together next year. You don't even get a choice in it, in fact.
Okay. My heart would just like break if it was not the case. You have me fully addicted now, so you can't back out. There's no getting rid of me.
Perfect. We're not getting rid of you anytime soon. So. All right, guys, it's been wonderful, and we will catch you on the next tutorial. Bye.